Welcome to the RAS Project, a podcast covering no bullshit, 100% real, raw, and unfiltered rags to riches stories from amazing human beings around the world with emphasis on life, personal development, family, tech, and marketing. Excuse me, I can't speak today. And we are back live in the flesh. It is Monday. Let's see, March 22nd. Wow, we're already into March. And ladies and gentlemen, I have a doozy of an episode for you guys. We are live in the flesh, streaming on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Periscope. And of course, this morning, we've got a trio. I'm joined, of course, by my lovely co-host, Courtney Turner. Good morning, Courtney. How are you?
Good morning. I am well, thank you. How are you doing? It's Monday.
I'm good.
My hair flying.
I'm good. It's Monday. Right. It is Monday. That's for sure. And I'm pretty excited because we've got an amazing episode lined up this morning. How was your weekend? What'd you end up doing this weekend?
I was working most of the weekend, but I flew back last night. So I'm back in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Feel about that, but yeah.
Okay.
I kind of missed. I'm already kind of missing my little dose of freedom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was.
Well,
it was really nice. Like people didn't, harass me about wearing masks. People just, let you kind of live and let live, and it was almost like I was in America. It was kind of crazy.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, great to hear that. Great to hear that you're back home. I know you were traveling a little bit, and so we've got a great episode. We've got a great guest actually that's going to be joining us in just a second here. And I know you're going to be excited for this because you're huge fitness aficionados. So we're going to have a lot to talk about. And without further ado, I want to welcome Lanora Wyatt. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Ivan? Hi, Courtney.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you.
Good to see you. All right. Well, before we get started, I want to introduce Lanora and share with viewers and listeners a little bit about your story. And then we'll jump into kind of, tell us a little bit about how it all started. So Lanora Wyatt is the CEO and owner of Fitness by Nori. She became the owner of Fitness by Nori through her own fitness journey. Lanora has always been a dreamer. She has always been competitive, driven, and disciplined. Oh, I know a person like that. Yes, that's you, Courtney. So Lanora is a U.S. Navy and Army veteran, and thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
We greatly appreciate it. Lanora is a senior human resources professional, MBA and HR certified by SHRM and HRCI. Now, to add to that, Lanora is a certified master trainer through the International Sports Sciences Association. That's the ISSA. And did I choose ISSA? Yes. And enjoys assisting others with their health and wellness goals. Lanora has always loved to help people, believes in this passion stems from a background of being rejected and feeling like she needed to prove herself to be accepted. Oh my God, that's a powerful, powerful story there. But so with that being said, let's turn things over to you, Lanora, and tell us a little bit about, how did this all start? Can you go back to, your early days and tell us, how did you get into the service, obviously, and how did you get into fitness? Where you've been, what you've seen. Tell us about it.
So if we travel back to my early days, like you said, I ended up going to the military because my grandmother was raising us. I was legally adopted by my maternal grandmother. As you said in my bio, I felt like I was rejected. I wasn't wanted by my mother and my father. My mother was a 14-year-old. She got pregnant with me. She had me when she was 15, just learning herself. She didn't know, right? And then I never knew my father until I was 21. And so those foundational principles of love and things like that you're supposed to receive from your parents, I didn't receive those. And so I went through a bulk of my life trying to be accepted and wanting to have this group of friends and things of that nature that regular young kids have, right? And I didn't have that. And so I always try to fight to be that person to lean on and stuff like that, because I know I wanted that. And so I've always been competitive as far as wanting to be the best or wanting to do the best. I was the oldest grandchild, and so I was helping my grandmother raise the other grandkids and stuff like that. And so I just always felt like I had to do good. I didn't want to cause her any stress. She raised us and she took me in and everything and adopted us. So I didn't want to cause her any extra stress. So I made good grades and things like that, hoping to get that affirmation. And a lot of times it was more or less like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So you don't get affirmed for doing those things and stuff like that. And so that's what ended up happening. I went to Prairie View A&M University for 1 semester. I was sheltered by my grandmother, of course, because, we went through the abuse and everything before the adoption. And so I was sheltered. So she wouldn't, allow us to party and hang out and things of that nature. And so when I got to college, my first semester, I hit the yard, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm paying to go to school and school loans and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I've always been a thinker. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do that and waste all of this money and leave. I don't have a degree. And so my grandmother I had ridden with her one day to the hearing aid place, and it was the recruiters, the Navy recruiter right next door to the hearing aid place. And when she got out, she's always speaking to someone, and she's talking to the guy that was standing out there, the recruiter. And she said, well, what do I need to do to join? And he said, run a couple of blocks, do some push-ups or something like that. And she was like, well, honey, I can't do that, but she can. And so he came to the window and he tried to talk to me. He gave me his card. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that, of course. And then when I went to Prairie View and hung out and stuff and realized that I didn't want to waste the money, I came home before the semester ended. I came home and was like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And she was like, you sure do. So I called the recruiter and I said, hey, either I'm going to go today or I'm not going to go. He came and picked me up. I stayed at the hotel overnight. That next morning at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, I was on MEPS floor all day, meaning I took my test that day. I took all of my medical exams, physicals, everything all in one day. And I flew out the next morning to Orlando, Florida. And so that's how I ended up in the Navy. So it says Navy and Army. So I ended up in the Navy there. Got out. My grandmother was sick. So after my 3 years, I got out to come home and help her. 5 years after that, my grandmother passed. I was already at Frito-Lay. I was working for Frito-Lay for almost 11 years. Went up the rank there. And then they had a huge layoff during the recession back in 2008, 2010. So in 2010, I was laid off. And I was like, I've always wanted to be a military officer. A couple of months after that, I was getting married. So my whole life was just changing. And so he was like, you don't need to work. He didn't want me to work, but I was like, I have to do something. So he was like, well, what have you always wanted to do? And I said, I've always wanted to be a military officer. He said, well, do that. So in April, I got married. I went back to the military, did my research and everything. The Navy was not accepting prior service, so I couldn't go back to the Navy. Wouldn't dare go to the Marines. That's a different branch. You have to be something else to go to the Marines. And the Air Force didn't accept prior service as well. And so the Army was accepting. So I went to the Army, had to go back through boot camp and everything because I had been out for over 10 years. And so it was just a whole different something else. So I went back to the military, to the Army. And in 2016, I ended up going through the divorce. So
oh, wow.
So I went through a divorce and it kicked up that neglect and that, not feeling wanted and all of that. It kicked all of that up again. And it was just really huge. And so, of course, the first thing we do is we run to our emotions and we eat up everything. And so I started eating up my pain and everything. And I'm only 5'1". So before you knew it, I was 100.
Well,
I never knew that, Courtney.
Yeah.
I never knew that. I always thought I shouldn't say anything. I thought you were about 5. You know what? There's height doesn't matter. I don't think height matters.
When she's done, I'm going to tell you a funny story about that, though, because people
Yeah.
always think I'm taller. It's really funny.
Well, at 5'1", and I say 5'1" because once, you know, we can't go up anymore, we start to go out, right? So I had gotten, at my largest, I got to 198 pounds. And so I just kept saying, I will not be 200 pounds. I will not be 200 pounds. And so ironic enough, my girlfriend and I were at Papa Do's and we were eating. She ended up introducing me to one of her friends who was this trainer. And he said, she was telling me about his class and everything. And I was like, oh, his class is nothing. And so he asked me for my number and he sent me a text. And so we just kept talking. And so she said, she said, call me tomorrow if you're not dead. And I said, that class is not that serious. And so he tapped me on my shoulder and he said, did you fill out the waiver that I sent you? And I was like, a waiver? I need a waiver? Like I'm really gonna die in this class? Like, are you serious? And so he was like, no, you'll be all right or whatever. And so I filled out the waiver. I went to the class the next morning and it was an amazing class. The name of the class is Trap Fitness with Pretty Girls. It's none other than the CEO was Traylon Curry. He ended up, when I went to the class, wonderful class. I lost 41 pounds in 4 months. He ended up being my personal trainer for the next 2 years after that. And that's how I ended up into fitness. I mean, he showed a different love for fitness, you know, working out, having fun. And so I ended up launching Fitness by Nori in November 21st, actually, of 2020 during a pandemic. Yes. And I launched Fitness by Nori, started personal training clients and things of that nature. And now I have the total body experience. It's a fitness class, the total body experience at 3711 West Camp Wisdom here in Dallas on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. So that's how my fitness journey came. If you can't tell, pain is interwoven through my whole life story, and that's how everything always comes out. So
and wow. So I want to go back for a second though, because when you were talking about the service, I think there's something there, or there's something been there for a long time, and I'm curious to hear about it. And I think you've had a drive, you've had this sense of resilience since a very young age. I think because I picked up on that as you were sharing in your story, right? But I'm curious to know, you know, as you were talking about going into the service, right? So the Army, and then it was the Navy, right? Also, so like, and both of them, obviously. But was there a specific reason? Was there something that was like enticing you, or was it just, you know, on a mission to serve and protect? And what was that? I'm curious to know. Like at that time, if you were to go back, you know, when you were making those decisions, right? When our recruiter was chasing you, right? Like, what was going through your head? Like, what were you thinking? What were the decisions? Because I think there were a lot of emotions right there. I'm curious to hear, because I think that has been a huge driving factor for you all the way into now starting Fitness by Nori, and would love to hear, you know, of that. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So when you were talking about the recruiter that was chasing me, my whole thing was when I went to the military, I did have a desire to serve. Of course, I was only, I was 17, 18 years old. So I didn't know the gist of everything, right? But I've always had a passion to serve. I've always wanted to give back. I'm always trying to help someone. And for earlier part of my years, because all of my friends call and talk to me and stuff, my grandmother, they thought I was going to be a counselor. So because I'm always trying to serve and help someone, right? But what was going on at that time is, it was so much happening in my earlier years. That's when, you know, the drugs were flooding into the Black and brown communities, right? The parents were, you know, on drugs and out in, you know, in the streets and stuff. The government assistance was there, but you couldn't have men in the house. And so the fathers and stuff were being pushed out and things of that nature, right? Not to mention, I never knew mine. And so my whole drive at that point was to try to figure out how to get my life on track so that I can help someone. If you're not good, you can't help anyone else, because you're trying to serve out of an empty reservoir, you know, and you're supposed to serve out of your overflow. And so I was empty and I was trying to figure it out. I didn't have, again, my mother and my father. I didn't feel the love. I was feeling neglected, rejected. Where do I go? So I ended up going to the military because I went to college, hung out and stuff, and I'm figuring I'm gonna have to pay for this. I'm gonna have school loans and debt out the wazoo. So I need to figure out, what am I gonna do with my life? And I remembered I had that card. And so that's when I came home, and my grandmother was like, you need to figure out what you're gonna do. I'm like, well, I don't want to cause her any more stress. Like, this lady has taken me in. Like, I don't want to do that to her. So let me go to the military. I've always been mentally resilient. I've always been mentally strong. I remember we did like this 15-mile ruck. And I don't know if you guys know what a ruck is, but a ruck march is like you're marching with your rucksack on your back with everything in the bag, and you're just marching, right? It appears that there's no destination. You're just walking. But we did this 15-mile ruck. And I remember it was a van, and the van is towards the back because people that fall out, you get in the van and stuff. And they're not saying they're going to give you a ride. It's saying if you end up in that van, you're going to have to start over, right? And so I remember the van was too close to me. And I remember saying, leaders lead from the front, not the back. And I just started marching past everyone. I've always been mentally strong, and I'll always dig down deep and figure out something that will pull forward. And so that thing for me that day was, there have been many women that did this before me. So I know I can do this. And that's what I would do. I would always push forward, which is how I kind of got my workout name, my name, which is Miss Butterfly Beast, right? I'm pretty as a butterfly, but I train like a beast. Like, I just, when I'm in that mode, it's like my mind just clicks on and it just does something different. I'm just a little bit different from everybody else.
No,
you know what?
So there's.
Do you know what stands out for me? Oh, sorry. What stands out for me? Definitely you have a mental resilience and fortitude, but you have a tremendous sense of gratitude, and I think that that's really. I know you look at it from like the grit perspective, which you certainly have. I mean, not to take that away from you, but you also, at least what it appears to me, you have a tremendous sense of gratitude for all the things you've been through, all the struggles. You are still so appreciative of the things that you got, of the people who were there for you, of the gifts that you were blessed with, and the people who have served before you. And it seems that you want to, instead of being entitled and thinking, the world owes me, you're like, how can I give back? I was given all these gifts, and I want to serve with them and to share them. And that's really beautiful. Thank
you, Courtney. Absolutely. The gratitude part, it's how I start my entire day. It's how I start my life. My day is started with, I journal. I read my word, and when I say my word, I read the Bible. I am a woman of faith. I don't try to push my faith off on anybody else. The way that you serve is the way that you serve. But, and I read my Bible, I write in my journal, and I listen to people that give me positive inspiration and motivation, like Eric Thomas and David Goggins. He's a beast.
David Goggins, my dude.
Go ahead.
David Goggins is my dude.
I can't hear you.
Oh, what do we got going on?
Yeah, I can totally see it. That really does shine through.
Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you guys. I don't know what's going on.
Oops. Okay, let's try.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Courtney? Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
I can't hear you either, Courtney. I can't hear either of you.
Super weird.
Okay. Here. How about now? No?
No, she can't hear.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Courtney?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Hear you. And I can hear you, Lanora. But you can't hear us.
I can't hear either of you. I haven't touched anything.
Okay.
Okay.
Check my volume.
Courtney,
Check
My
Yeah.
volume is up. I haven't touched anything.
Maybe check your output. Like,
yeah, she can't hear us, Courtney, for some reason. I can hear you, but she can't hear us.
right. Weird.
Okay, let me see if I can restart this, and then we'll come back in. I don't know what's